Hi, everybody. Ruben Dryblatt here. I wish I was coming to you in better times. In light of all the craziness with the global pandemic coronavirus, I thought it was good that I launched my own series of videos where we could hear from people who have been personally affected by it. In light of that, I'm today launching COVID Chats, which aims to offer us all a reprieve from the news, facts, and figures being distributed by the media. Now, of course, this news is incredibly important and we should stay on top of it and follow it closely. But at the same time, it's important to hear real people's stories and understand the personal impact that COVID-19 has had and will continue to have over these next weeks and months. My first guest today is Sarah Pomerantz. Sarah Pomerantz is a senior in the Rutgers Business School and Honors College. She originally hails from Boston, Massachusetts. She has traveled to over 30 countries, pre-corona of course, and was recently named as one of the top 5 student entrepreneurs in the United States. She has a double major in leadership and management with a minor in social justice. She has a concentration in entrepreneurship and certificates in women's leadership and women's business leadership. She is incredibly smart and articulate and did an excellent job letting me know what it was like on campus when this news began to break. We talk about everything from spring break to students not doing enough to prevent them spreading the disease, to face masks, to food hoarding. It was really a all-encompassing conversation. And thank you, Sarah, for being a part of it. Now, without further ado, here is COVID Chats, Episode 1. So, Sarah, it's great to have you here. Of course, I wish it was under better circumstances, but thankfully, due to modern technology, we can have this conversation, which is amazing. And I've got a few questions for you. I'm wondering first, what was it like on campus when the semester switched online? What was that switch like? It happened sometime last week, no?
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much for having me on
Of
COVID
course.
Chats. It's an honor and a pleasure. So I'm a senior at Rutgers University, and we found out, I believe, on last Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
that we would be switching over to online after spring break. So this week is spring break, and they pushed spring break up 2 days early,
Mm-hmm.
but we haven't had any online classes yet unless your professor decided to have online classes during the days that were supposed to be spring break, which I don't think most did. But a
Right.
lot of students had midterms and papers due last week. And then this upcoming Monday will be the first day of official online classes.
Mm.
Yeah.
And what was the mood like on campus when that switched? Did a reality sort of set in for a certain amount of students? Or people still, I mean, I know people still, young people our age are still, not everybody's on board with the fact that this is very serious and will be affecting us for a couple of months. Some people just
Yeah,
want to treat it like, it's going to be a week and then it'll blow over. But yeah, so what
totally.
was that like with students on campus? I mean,
Yeah, I think the reality set in at different points for different people.
hmm.
Uh, for me, it became a lot more real on Monday because I found out that the trip that I've been planning for this week, an alternative spring break trip to Alabama, was going to be canceled. And once that happened, I think that was the beginning for me of a series of events of things getting more and more serious.
Hmm.
It went from that's getting canceled to okay, all classes are going to be online and we're reassessing on April 3rd, to if you're on campus, you're getting kicked out, but me thinking, oh, I'm in an apartment, I'll be fine, to no, you're also getting kicked out. You have to leave campus, everyone pack up your stuff and go. So it happened very, very quickly. And there were still people, my friends, who were planning on going to Costa Rica or Florida for spring break, even after they knew that they were getting kicked out of their apartments.
Hmm.
So there were the people who for weeks have been saying, this is coming, impending doom, to those who are still right now out celebrating St. Patty's Day, probably pretending that nothing else is happening. And I went to Drexel University
Hmm.
on Thursday because my cousin goes there, and they were a couple days behind. So Thursday was the day that all the announcements happened. So students really had no time to internalize and
Oh,
spent the entire weekend partying. which
Really?
is feels surreal when everyone else is in apocalypse mode.
Right. Wow. That's wild. Yeah, I mean, it just shows you, right? Everybody's getting things at different times. All these announcements are coming out at different times. There's no like unilateral, like, this is when everybody found out. I know that is one of the scariest aspects of it, is that it doesn't seem like there's any continuity across any of these government agencies. Everything sort of catch can a little bit.
Yeah. And the messaging also changed so much from early last week and previously, where the federal government was essentially saying, don't worry, everything's fine, it's just a bad flu,
Right.
to, okay, national emergency,
Right.
no travel to Europe, everything is shutting down, the stock market is crashing. That happened at the switch of a dime. So I think people had whiplash almost of, am I taking this seriously? Am I not taking it seriously? I don't want to panic, whatever panicking means,
Right.
but like, people didn't really know what was constructive, or
Right.
what was realistically going to happen, because canceling a graduation a week ago would seem like the furthest thing from reality, and now it's happening every day.
Right. Right. Yeah, that whiplash, I think that describes it perfectly. That is, so many people are reeling from, the latest announcement, based on, how they had thought it was going to go, and how bad they thought it was. And it's like, all right, now it coming from the top, it's now I need to worry. Now I need to panic. And I wasn't panicked enough. Everybody's
Oh yeah.
switching back and forth. So Rutgers right now, it's a ghost town. All students are off campus.
Yeah, so it's very dead. It feels like as if almost more so than if you went during the summer or winter break.
Mm.
There are still about 1,000 students who are on campus, whether that's because they're an international student or distant, out of state, or their housing arrangement isn't safe, or a place that they can go. So there were exceptions made. I technically am allowed to be on campus right now. I got an acceptance as an out-of-state student, that I could go back to my apartment if I wanted, and so could my roommate. But for most people are not, including people in Greek life, and off-campus housing. If you were affiliated with the school in any way, you were also kicked off.
You were kicked off. Yeah, I mean, it must be wild for those students who are still on campus. I mean, what are they even doing for the dining halls are definitely shut down. What are they doing for food and groceries? I mean, not all of them have a car, especially if they're international students. I mean,
so we have I think two of the dining halls are still open, but under like restricted hours.
Uh-huh.
So those are still operating, but limited. And only yesterday did they announce that all the New Jersey businesses are shutting down,
Wow.
or like besides for takeout. So
Right.
I guess that's really their only option right now, is grocery stores and takeouts. But anyone who's been to a grocery store recently knows that there's no guarantee that they're going to have in stock essential items. I went to a grocery store yesterday and they were fresh out of eggs. So I think everyone's kind of dealing with this new reality, and being on campus alone as an international student or someone who has no family here is the worst, or one of the worst situations.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds terrifying, especially now, there's all these travel bans popping up, airlines, even if they could potentially fly back to wherever, they're from, like that might not even be a possibility now with these planes shut down. I mean, I was checking with some friends the other day, some of the airline prices. I mean, it's crazy. It's like $40 to fly to New Orleans right now. And it's like, that seems like a great place to escape until you realize that most of it's shut down too. Like you couldn't.
Right. Well, that was the conversation for so long. It felt like, I mean, so long being a couple days, but what felt like eternity was all these college students being like, oh, well, I can't travel abroad, but hey, Vegas is $50, Miami is 20.
Right.
And I'm standing there thinking, they're closing everything down. What are you going to do in Vegas right now? Like, what do you think is happening in Vegas? Especially with Miami, which was like the quintessential spring break location.
Right.
And they were closing the day clubs, and people were still considering going. And I just think it really wasn't settling for people. People's mentality was, I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to make it.
Right.
Or like, I'm not going to contract coronavirus, or if I do, I'll be fine.
Right.
And then it wasn't sinking in for people that even if you're individually fine, if everyone else is treating this as a national emergency and a global pandemic, then you will not be able to continue as if nothing else has changed.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. Everybody wanting to live as if like, oh, because I'm okay, the rest of the the world will still function because, it revolves around me. I know it kind of, I don't want to say it's all an ego thing because I think it is also like, I think people have a very hard time dealing and grappling with sort of these kinds of existential dreads that suddenly become very, very real, and less out there and very, very close to home. And it's just like, they can't imagine realities where, the supermarket's out of eggs. Like, what, the chickens stopped laying eggs? What happened? Oh wait, everyone bought all the eggs. Like,
Yeah.
so a little bit of a yeah. Sorry, okay, well,
Supply and demand just gets very real very quickly in these situations.
absolutely right. Yeah, demand through the roof. So shifting a little bit, what's it like? I mean, you're a college senior. I know you, of course, have been very active throughout your college experience. But what's it like? I mean, I'm sure you're a little sad, a bit upset, but maybe tell me more about how is it that essentially, I mean, of course, classes will still be online, and that's the bulk of education. It's why we go to college, but there's all these other aspects of college, certainly, that I'm privy to. So what's it like having the remainder of your senior year ostensibly canceled? And of course, I'm sorry about that because that sucks.
Yeah, it's nobody's ideal situation. I think for me, it hasn't fully set in, honestly, that the second half of senior year is canceled, especially because we were all supposed to be away on spring break right now. So I think it will feel more real next week, and in the future as, milestones start to pass that we're missing. Slowly but surely, it'll settle in that we're not going back in the same capacity. Mind you, Rutgers has not made a decision about what we're going to be doing past April 3rd. But given that I believe the latest announcement was Trump said something yesterday about like July or August before things will resume as usual. And who knows? But a lot of schools already have canceled for the entire semester. And for a lot of people, yeah, they were looking forward to these last months as being, college is the best 4 years of your life, and the last months of college are the best parts of college. Then they were teeming with anticipation for these months. I think for me, I personally have made a lot out of my college experience. Anyone who knows all the million things I'm involved with, and the relationships are there forever. That's not, I don't think any relationships are dependent on these last few months, but people whose mentality were like, I'm going to go wild at the very end. I'm going to finally tell the person that I've been crushing on for 4 years that I'm into them, or like, I'm going to go stick it to that professor because they can't hurt me now. I'm employed. All those type of mentality people, they're the ones who are missing out by not living to the fullest previously. But I think my heart goes out more so, obviously, to people who are losing people in coronavirus. And I think it's an important perspective for seniors to keep.
Definitely.
That you're healthy and hopefully your family's healthy right now.
Right.
But also, people were trying to find jobs. Like, it's relatively short-sighted to say, we're missing. It's true, we'll never be able to make up these months, and it's never going to be the same, and that is a tremendous loss. But also, ask people who graduated college in 2008, finding a job in a recession is no joke. It's what nobody wants to be, situation-wise. So I think that's going to be, people will mourn losing this phase and then face the stark reality pretty quickly, if they don't already have a job, that this is going to be a larger challenge than just, no senior days.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Well, very well put. And I'm glad I'm glad you're able to take in the full perspective of, the reality of the situation. And I know you weren't the type of person who was just waiting for, those last 2 months. You've been living every day as if, this is what college is about. Let's make it happen. It's not about putting things off to the near future, which ultimately doesn't really come unless, as you said, there's these milestones, and then sure, something is scheduled to happen. But now that's off the table. Yeah.
No, I just hope people learn from this, like all things, right? It's just that all of our time is relatively finite, and to not put things off that they want to make happen. We do have these amazing virtual tools in the form of Zoom and Facebook and all the other social media platforms to reach out to people you wanted to reach out to, and to maintain the relationships you wanted to maintain. And hopefully schools will definitely schedule something, whether that's in August or next year, and find a way to incorporate class of 2020 into those traditions.
Right. Yeah, I saw the NCAA. Some teams are vying to have allow the seniors to come back next year, which would be amazing. I think logistically wise, very difficult, of course. I don't know how that would work, but certainly we need to do something to make up for, these lost moments, whether that be rescheduling or just mentality shifts, as you said, right? Let's take advantage of the time we do have together and make the most of it. And then, yeah, just because we're at home, right, as you said, doesn't mean that, we can still do plenty. We can still communicate online. If you have a little piano in your living room, and you've always wanted to learn, now's the time, right? Diddle those keys and I get on
Totally.
it. There's books. Everyone always says, I wish I had more time to read. Now's the time to read. Crack open the Faulkner. You got the sound
Yeah.
and the fury up your sleeve. Okay, final question for you. How about on-campus workers? I mean, of course, we feel for them, but do we know what the situation is like for people who are working in those situations? I mean, I know plenty of union jobs that, Broadway shows and such are now out of work. And do you know what it's
Yeah.
like? Do you have friends who are working on campus?
Yeah. So there's, I guess, two groups, right? There's the students who have jobs on campus, whether that's work study or they're employed by a body of the university.
Hmm.
And then there are the hourly workers that the university employs, who are not currently students. So people who work at the dining halls, which
Right.
you did for a period of time, but that's not the norm.
Yeah.
Or people who are security guards, all these different hourly workers we don't necessarily even think about. For the student workers, I think arrangements are being made. There are definitely going to be financial losses all over the place, but one of my friends works for career services and he's getting paid and not even made to do the work. It's just like they're just going to keep sending the paycheck. I work at the visitor center and they're trying to find unique creative opportunities for students, whether that's having video chats with potential students or sending in digital content other ways and being pretty creative about it. So I think we aren't going to bear most of the brunt of the financial burden as student employees, although different offices will have different procedures.
Right.
I think what's going to be really hard is the hourly workers. I don't know if the president of our university has put forth plan for that. I know, by example, Mark Cuban said that he was going to continue to pay the hourly workers of the Mavs. So that's phenomenal. More employers do that for their hourly workers, and those who are more fortunate are able to continue for everyone's sake, because also as consumers, you want them to have that ability to spend as they need to. So I think it'd be best for the economy in general, and definitely for the university, if we can find a way to keep paying people.
Right.
And there have been a lot of students who have been demanding refunds of their tuition. And the response has been, listen, that money goes to pay for people, and there might be room in certain areas for there to be refunds for the food that isn't being eaten. But in terms of salaries, you don't want all that money to come back because it does support other people. So I think people have to think 2 or 3 steps ahead of where their money is going.
Right.
And think about all these systems in place because this will be studied for decades to come, if not centuries, as to, global health, public policy wise, and economically speaking, what we could have done to better prepare and have systems in place. But on the flip side, I know you were talking about books. I just got off the phone with someone who works for the university who's saying, hey, this isn't bad. Maybe I'll retire after this whole thing blows over. I think the workaholics amongst us are finally having to take a deep breath and learning about what the silence inside of our head sounds like for once, which is refreshing, learning to meditate. People kept sharing online that Isaac Newton, I believe, during the bubonic plague had to take a break from Oxford, and that was when he discovered a lot of different scientific theories. So it'll be fascinating to see what discoveries, insights, art will come out of this phase of people having to stop their rat race lifestyle and focus on what matters, which were the relationships in the first place. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sort of cutthroat, constant American culture of just, going into work all the time, never taking vacation, working. Now that ceases so quickly.
Yeah.
It does, right? That, I mean, that's definitely the positive way to look at it. Maybe some great discoveries can be made from it, both on a global level and also on a personal level, right? I mean, who knows what you'll realize that you are interested in. You'll find some old passion of yours from high school and rediscover it, and now you have the time to do it, right? If you don't
Make
have
it
any of
amazing.
these other, financial woes, or, somebody in your family, God forbid, has this, there's always those situations too. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else for you on this situation, either as a student, you personally? I know you have you evacuated. You're in Massachusetts on the Cape right now.
Yeah.
What's it like over there?
Sure. So I can even just give like a little bit of a day by day, because maybe that'll be helpful.
Yeah, I'd love that.
What the week was was like in sequencing.
Hmm.
To put this into perspective for people who weren't in university settings, because I think it felt like much more of maybe it didn't. Maybe I'm guessing this, but I think it felt like a one single blow in
Hmm.
terms of national emergency. But at the university level, right. So Monday, I found out the trip was going to be canceled, and it starts to sink in just how real this is. Tuesday, we find out that spring break's going to be 2 days earlier, and that we're going to, have spring break and then go online until April 3rd.
Hmm.
So everyone else starts realizing this is real. Maybe
Right.
my roommates are still considering going on their Costa Rica trip, and they were considering up to Thursday night leaving on Friday.
Oh my God.
So yeah, those were the late night debates. Do we go? It'll be fine. No, it will not be okay.
No, will not be.
It will not be okay. Wednesday, we find out that just because we're in apartment housing doesn't mean we're not going to get kicked out. So now we need to pack up, but you don't know for how long. So some people are packing up their entire apartments. Other people were just taking enough stuff for 3 weeks. For
Hmm.
out-of-state students, this means potentially coming back to their apartment and moving things out all in one fell swoop. A lot
Hmm.
of people's parents can't come help move them out because employers haven't recognized that it's a problem yet.
Hmm.
So employers really only started changing things about Thursday, Friday. Thursday is the first day of spring break. I go to my cousins at Drexel,
Right.
and they just start to realize that that they're going online. And then Friday, she finds out she's getting kicked out of her housing, so we both get kicked out. I stay at a friend's, and then we go back to Rutgers on Saturday. It's like it was crazy. It felt like you were driving down a highway, and as you were driving, everything was collapsing right after you, like in those classic action movies. Speed chases where if you had made the other move, if you had slowed down a little bit, you would have fallen under. You just have to keep going from place to place to place.
Right.
Which I think is a common phenomenon. A lot of my friends are just kind of keep moving around,
Right.
don't stop, but then simultaneously stay home and social distance. Yeah,
Wow.
it's been
Yeah, that
nuts.
timeline it's just wild how quickly things change, how quickly news gets out there, right? I mean, Rutgers is
Oh,
having one response. You go down to Drexel, they're on a completely different page.
oh yeah, and other schools were earlier. A lot of the Ivies made decisions much earlier, right? Penn's already canceled graduation, and
Really?
Rutgers hasn't even made any statements about what's happening after April 3rd.
Mm,
So
right.
still, there is no like national university consensus as to how seriously to treat this, and that's a product of leadership not having any clear vision on what's going on either. But yeah, then went from Rutgers on Saturday, home on Sunday, out to the Cape on Monday, and I'm here on in beautiful Cape Cod, isolated from everyone.
Uh,
But yeah, like I couldn't even stay home because my grandmother's 96,
right.
so I don't risk exposing her.
Right.
Um, these considerations of people having to choose between family also, that's just horrible. Yeah.
I know. I mean, those kinds of decisions, right? I mean, who knew? We don't know how long the potential quarantine or shutdown would be. It's like I don't want to be separated from them, but then I don't want to be with them if in case I could give it to them. It's
Right. A lot of our parents are boomers or older, and grandparents as well. So it's this combination of always assuming that in a tragic situation, you'd want to be with your family. And then the realization that you could be what would cause the tragedy within your
right.
family
Right.
is something that you've never really had to reconcile with before. And
Never.
all
Yeah.
the parents are just like, I'm tough, I'll be fine. And you're like, but will you be fine? I
Will
mean,
you
it's
though? Right.
easier to say, but then
Right.
it's infecting a lot of people. The first person to die in New Jersey was in his 60s, and our
Mm.
parents are around that age. I mean, it's not so far off.
Definitely not far off at all. What was it like on campus when a student got it? I got an alert on my phone that some student had contracted COVID. Did that alert go out to everybody, or was
I
that?
got the alert about the biomedical engineering professor. I don't know if it's the
Yeah,
same. It was the same. Yeah.
maybe
So
I think it was the same.
that was the alert that I received.
You
A
know what?
lot of people believe that a lot more people obviously have have COVID
Right.
are being confirmed cases, but that was the first confirmed case.
Mm.
And my friend, is a biomedical engineering student, so he got an email saying that your professor had it, and to avoid leaving the house, and he's supposed to be in quarantine. I doubt he is doing that, but yeah, like I think they got the messaging first about that. And obviously the classroom setting is relatively low risk. It's not like a small seminar style,
Right.
but still, I'm sure the first of many. And there were some other cases that were reported to be going on at the RWJ hospital as well.
Mm.
And New Brunswick has a lot of hospitals and a lot of older people. So there's no doubt that this will just be probably the first case, unfortunately, of many that will impact the university.
Right. Were any students wearing masks or gloves? Did you see any of that in your last days there?
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting. I feel like there was kind of an up and down trend of a number of people wearing masks. That the beginning of the semester, there was a good number of international students who were wearing masks.
Right.
But then a lot of information was sent out about don't buy masks, and people were getting shamed for wearing masks because the thought was that we need to be saving them for health workers.
Right.
So that backlash, I think, decreased the number of people with wearing masks. And then in the last days on campus, you would see people wearing gloves. So I think people were just following what were supposed to be the best practices at the time, but it's a chasing game because that new information, and then everyone's just screaming, just wash your hands, and everyone's pretending that they already do wash their hands enough. So like, I know most people my age are not washing their hands for 20 minutes for sure. So or 20 seconds, 20 minutes. Yeah, 20 seconds. Key distinction, but 20 minutes can't hurt unless you rub your hand off. Yeah, I don't know. No hand left. But I don't think, not too many masks. I don't know. How about in New York City? Has there been a lot of mask wearing?
There's definitely more masks. I haven't been outside as much. I mean, I've been riding my bike a little bit. Streets are pretty quiet though. I mean, for the international students more wearing masks, that I kind of get that. It does definitely seem like, at least internationally and in more Asian countries, there's more of it's more common to wear a mask, either to, I think from what I've read, it's a lot of the times if you're not feeling so well, you'll wear a mask so you don't spread it. Whereas a lot of people are thinking, oh, they're wearing a mask so they don't get it.
Right.
So I think
and most of the literature that I've read also has said that you should be wearing it if you feel sick. That there's a point of doing that.
Right.
But it is kind of this fascinating dual cultural policy about what is the best practice, and the West feeling really firmly that do not wear masks if you do not have the symptoms, and East strongly asserting the opposite.
Right.
So that's definitely been interesting. I don't know if you've seen all of the articles about the price gouging also, and people hoarding Purell and masks as well. But that's not contributing well to the supply of these materials either. And my brother in residency, and they're asking their doctors to reuse the masks, which is not what you're supposed to do. So
really,
I hope people who are hoarding them donate them to a hospital if you have.
Yes, you don't need 1,000 N95 masks in your apartment. Like, it's not doing anything. Yeah, I know. Yeah, the hoarding and the bulk buying. I mean, I get you want to protect yourself, but you don't need 1,000 bottles of Purell. And I mean, even more so is it bad because it means other people can't get it, but it also just contributes to this panic and like to this crazy fervor of I'm going to buy, everything on the shelves. It fuels that. It's like a fire. They're throwing kerosene on it by doing that, even though they think they're doing the best thing. Like, oh, if I have 1,000 bottles of Purell, I'll be sterile forever. But like,
no, it's also, I think it's like a conflation of American individualism of I must protect myself as best as possible, with a misunderstanding of how viruses work, because you're not better protected if your neighbors are less protected.
Right.
And you'll be better off if everyone else is also.
Mm.
And everyone keeps screaming because it's essentially how vaccines work too, right? You don't just do it for you got to do it for everyone else.
Right.
And that's true. Like, I care. It matters just as much whether I have Purell as whether the people around Purell. So I should want them to have it too. The same cannot necessarily be said for toilet paper, but common decency says that you should also not hoard toilet paper.
Yeah, the toilet paper thing is baffling to me. It's just truly, this is the number one thing we need, toilet paper?
Number one. Number two.
I see what you did.
Yeah. It is kind of crazy. That's the first thing people think of. But the Europeans are already set with their bidets, so I think it's probably high time we switch over.
The bidet is great. Yeah, I mean, my former upstairs neighbor is a big bidet guy. Only issue is, yeah, I mean, it's smart. Only issue is after you use the bidet, it's a little wet. You gotta damp, tap dry a little bit, or do a little dance.
Towel, right?
Right, exactly. Towel. Take a shower.
I don't know. Figure it out. But it's definitely more sustainable than 20,000 rolls of toilet paper.
I know. Okay, Sarah. We did a fresh 30 minutes there.
Good.
Thank you so much for being on the pilot episode of COVID Chats. I'll be posting this either later today or tomorrow. Thank you for your insights. Thank you for all the great knowledge and the sharp opinions and criticisms of policymakers on a governmental level. I certainly agree with you. We were not prepared for this at all, and it really shows, certainly in the current administration and all these other administrations, on the collegiate level and whatnot. It's just lack of preparation. It's a sad state to see, but I'm glad you are safe. I'm glad you are doing well and healthy. Best of luck. Heart to you. Best of luck in Cape Cod. I know you're working on the thesis a little bit, so keep chugging ahead, and I'll be excited to read it when it's done.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Okay.
Always a pleasure.
Great. Bye, Sarah.
Bye. Talk soon.